Hey everyone, Jimmy Muller here at Muller Chokes. Today in this video, I'd like to talk to you all about payloads, shot sizes, and pellet count, and how it affects our patterns and everything we do in shotgunning. So you hear a lot of talk about steel shot, bismuth, TSS these days, right? So one of the things that I've always been a big believer on and a big component in when it comes to shotgunning is margin of error, right? So the reason we use a shotgun is because we need margin of error to be able to hit a moving target, whether it be a clay target, a game bird, whatever. If we're hunting big game that's standing still, of course, we use a high-powered rifle for obvious reasons, but also because it's not moving or running, it makes it easier with a single projectile, right? So wouldn't be very easy to be able to hit a duck or a goose flying with a single projectile, regardless of how good our shooting ability is. So the reason we shoot a shotgun is for margin of error. And margin of error is created by pattern. And pattern is created by the amount of pellets in a shot shell at a given distance. So anytime that somebody tells you choke doesn't matter, or pattern doesn't matter, or gauge doesn't matter, because if you put the muzzle in the right spot, the target's going to break or the bird's going to die. That couldn't be further from the truth. That's total myth, and it's a cop-out. It's what people say that don't have knowledge and they have no way of understanding to explain it to you. Well, I'm here to explain it to you. So let's get a start on this. So just for argument's sake, what I did, because I don't have a 48-inch piece of paper and a huge whiteboard, what I did was I divided these numbers by 4 to give a quarter of what it really is, but I hand drew what the pellets look like based on steel shot, bismuth, lead, and TSS. And the ratio is correct. It's only a fourth of what the actual count of pellets is that I drew on the paper. But if I made them all a fourth, then they're all equal, right? So this is going to get the point across to you, what I mean about pellet count, density in the pattern, size, and also margin of error when it comes to shooting the right size pattern at a given distance with a given ammo or a given pellet material. So going off of this, based on 1 ounce of number 6 shot, okay, which is right here, 1 ounce of steel is 315 pellets, bismuth is 254, lead is 225, and TSS is 138 pellets. Now that's in 1 ounce, right? You could do the math because it's 1 to 1. If you do 1.5, it's an extra 50%, right? 2 ounces is double. It all translates 1 to 1, right? So you could do the math pretty easy. So with that being said, just to give you a little bit of a visual of what I mean by that, okay? Keep in mind that our rule of thumb is 100 pellets in a 30-inch circle for a good, ethical kill on a duck-sized bird, even a goose. You know, you got to be on the front of them anyway. So call it 100 pellets as a round number in a 30-inch circle to be a good, efficient killing pattern, right? Now, keep that 30 inches in mind because we're going to talk about that. So here is approximately what steel 1 ounce number 6 looks like, all right? That's based on 315 pellets per ounce, like we showed you. Right? Now take a good look at that density. This is hand drawn, but it just gives you a ratio. Now, here's bismuth at 254 pellets in 1 ounce, right? So you can see there's a little bit of difference in density, all right, even when we draw them pretty even, but that's bismuth. And because it's slightly heavier than steel, you're going to end up with less pellets, meaning less density, and also less usable margin of error on the outside fringe of the biggest pattern you could provide. And then we go to lead, and you're going to start to see a little bit of a difference now, okay? So there's lead, number 6, 1 ounce. That's based off of 225 pellets, right? So you can see where I'm starting to go with this, right? These are theoretically the same size patterns with the density of the pellet count of 1 ounce, right? Now, for all you TSS lovers out there, like myself, There's your 1 ounce of TSS. Okay? Now, the reason that I bring this up, that may be pretty shocking, right? So, the reason I'm bringing this whole video up is because of that reason. Pellet count is way more critical than payload. Payload means nothing if the pellet count is not there. So, going back to the whole steel thing, right? Steel, the pellet count king, even though it's very lightweight and people complain about it, it's the pellet count king, right? TSS, the power king, very few pellets, same exact 1 ounce load. So what does that mean? It means if you're going to shoot something heavy like TSS, the payload has to be heavy, because if it's not, you're not going to have enough pellets in a pattern to give you any margin of error. Yes, you don't need a lot of pellets on the bird to kill them with TSS because it's so ballistically efficient, meaning it's heavy. So it's going to transfer a huge amount of foot-pounds energy to the bird or the target. They're going to penetrate through the vitals very good, better than anything else. Understood. But please understand that if you're going to shoot heavy materials like TSS, you need heavy payloads to give you big pellet counts, or shall I say, enough pellet count to hit something. So yes, with this ratio of 1 ounce TSS number 6s, am I going to kill something at far yardage? Yes, I am. Why? Because TSS is dense. It's going to stay patterning tight at long distance. The problem is, am I going to be able to hit something with that? That is the key. So with my steel load, right, I'm definitely going to be able to hit that bird if I'm close and doing what I'm supposed to do. Same thing with bismuth. Same thing with lead. Now lead starts to get a little tighter and a little sparser, but when it comes down to that TSS, folks, keep in mind, you do not have margin of error, okay? Now, keep that in mind when you start talking about blended loads with TSS. You know, they're going to put a 1/4 ounce or whatever ounce of TSS in mixed with your steel or your bismuth or your lead or your whatever. Keep in mind that you're going to have so few TSS pellets in that thing, it's probably not going to do any good for you, because the TSS isn't going to be needed until past 50 yards, well past 50 yards. So why is the TSS in that shell? Because it's a marketing thing, because ammo companies, the moment that you hear TSS, you're going to pay for it, right? So you drop a few TSS pellets into a steel load or a bismuth load or a lead load or anything load, and guess what? You're number one, you're paying more for it, right? The person reloading it, didn't cost them much of anything to put those few pellets in, but they're making a fortune on the profit margin. So please, keep all this in mind when you're purchasing ammo, using ammo, right? Like I always talk about, 50 yards and in, bismuth is king, and steel, right? Steel out to 50 is a little rough. If you use the right loads like I've taught you in my chokes, you're going to be okay if you're on the front of the bird. Bismuth is obviously going to be better at 50 yards. If you're going to shoot past 50 yards, I am a firm believer, based on what I've learned and what I've done, that TSS is going to start to be king past that 50-yard mark. Can I kill birds at 60 with bismuth? Yes, I can. Do I? Yes, I do. But you have to have the right load, the right shot size, the right amount of pellets, the right choke, and you need to be on the front of the bird all the time, or you're not going to kill them at that distance. With TSS, you're going to have a lot more energy, but as I just showed you, you need to be much more accurate, unless you can afford to put enough pellets in the payload to deliver them to that target, giving you a margin of error. Now, next video I'm going to shoot, we're going to talk about what I mean by margin of error, because everybody talks about 30 inches, right? Well, let's talk about that.